there, Ramblers, and welcome back to Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and indeed all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, gaming, and technology. I hope you're all doing well out there, and as usual, we'll start with the weather forecast. Well, I say weather forecast, it's more a case of just kind of paying attention as I'm driving over to the studio. A bit of a chilly one here in the UK, but nice and crisp and clear, and things are starting to warm up. Spring is starting to... spring, I guess. All the daffodils and things are starting to pop up, which is always nice to see. And I'm informed by my hay fever suffering friends that, apparently hay fever season has also started early this year as well. So my condolences to you if that is the case. And one other little bit of admin that I just want to talk about just before we go into the first story for this week's podcast. I guess I need to address the increase in the visual fidelity of this episode. Yes, I have changed my workflow yet again. If you're a regular listener or viewer, you will no doubt be aware of me constantly complaining about my setup, about the audio and the video being slightly out of sync, about the quality of it, about it stuttering, and about all the rest of that stuff. And I thought, you know what? The main channel videos have been a little bit slower just lately, and that is due to other things that are going on, working on bigger projects and that kind of thing as well. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start recording these direct to camera. It's going to add a load of extra overhead and a load of extra workflow, but the Reese Rambles as a podcast, it seems to be doing better than ever at the moment. I'm getting about 1,500 regular viewers on YouTube and kind of a similar number every single week on the podcasting platforms as well. So thank you ever so much for that. Of course, wouldn't be possible without you, the viewers and the listeners. And I thought, you know what? Let's just put in a little bit of extra effort for you. So that's what I'm going to try this week. And if it doesn't prove to be too much of a burden, hopefully this can be a bit more of a thing going forward. So I guess we'll dive straight into the first story of the week. And that is to do with Croc, Legend of the Gobbos. I bet you thought I'd forgotten about this, hadn't you? But no, this is something that I have previously reported on. This was a 3D platform game back in the 90s. And it actually featured in a video on my channel. So I did a video all about the S3 Verge, where I covered every single game released for the Verge, and games that kind of supported S3 Verge acceleration. And indeed, Croc was one of them. And it was a game I hadn't really played for a very, very long time. Picked it up again, realised that actually, as far as 3D platformers go, it was a very, very good one, wasn't it, back in the day? And all the more bizarre because it was released on the PC in an era when it was kind of more about the N64 and the original PlayStation. And indeed, someone else has recognised the masterpiece that is Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, and they are working on a remaster of this. And we now have a release date for this as well. So this will be launching on April the 2nd, which is, as of the time of recording, less than 2 weeks away, which is really cool to see. And yeah, the story here on Gamatsu.com. I should pick websites with easier to pronounce names, shouldn't I? But over on Gamatsu.com, the headline here is Croc, Legend of the Gobbos Remaster launches April the 2nd, the classic platformer for a new generation. It says here, the remastered version of 3D platformer Croc, Legend of the Gobbos will launch digitally for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch and PC via GOG. So this is being released on GOG.com, goodoldgames.com, on April the 2nd, Argonaut Games announced. Now, this is, of course, Argonaut Games in name only, although, as previously reported on the Rambles, they do have the blessing of the original owners of that particular brand, of that particular publisher and developer, I should say. So that's very cool to see, a nice connection back to the original game. The PlayStation 5 and Switch are getting physical editions, which are out in Q2 2025, and you can actually pre-order those via the official distributor, Rocket Games. Shall we go over and have a look at their website as well while we're here? Let's have a look. So, yep, $39.99 on the PS5, or indeed the same price on the Switch. There's also a Gobbo plush that you can get for $19.99. I always like a plush. We've got the Collector's Edition for $129.99 on both of those platforms. And there's a digital version of the Collector's... the digital version of the Collector's Edition? What? Surely the whole point of the Collector's Edition is that you get the physical stuff. I don't know. What is the world coming to? Anyway, it's $10 cheaper if you want the digital version of that, whatever that consists of. And yeah, you know what? We'll take a look at the collector's edition while we are on this website. So you get a little Croc statue. That's probably the most impressive thing. Look at that. How cool is that? That looks like a 3D render. But still, Very cool. An 8-inch resin Croc statue with a signed and numbered certificate of authenticity. You got the 4-disc CD soundtrack. Of course, the game actually had quite a cool kind of ambient soundtrack as well going on as well, didn't it? You get a PVC keychain. You get an Ultra 3DFX sticker sheet. I don't even know what that means. A poster and a premium box. I am a sucker for a premium box. And it also explains what the remaster is all about. So you know what? We'll go over that as well. So it's HD graphics with high-resolution textures and models, updated modern analog controls with an improved camera. Retro display modes enables players to choose between modern and retro graphics. The Crocipedia, which is a digital museum jam-packed with long-lost design documents, character designs, pre-release versions of the famous soundtrack, and much more. And the Crocumentary, which is a series of video interviews of the developers and contributors, sharing their memories of working on the game and game industry experts discussing its place in gaming history. Does Croc have an important place in PC gaming history? I guess it was quite influential on some of the platformers. I don't remember it being a particularly original game. You know, obviously we had Mario 64 at that point, and I think like Crash Bandicoot, that kind of stuff. But it was a good game, and it's one that I think passed a lot of people by. But anyway, that's the story there. So we'll just go back to Gamatsu.com and see what else they have to add. Probably not. Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything. So Croc's back, and he's still got the moves. Just like Electric Callboy. Croc, Legend of the Gobbos, is the heartwarming journey of an endearing, humble little crocodile equipped with only his iconic backpack and a wiggly butt. I do like a wiggly butt. As he platforms his way across a series of unique worlds by running, jumping, climbing, swimming, and tail spinning on his quest to rescue his adopted family of gobbos from the grasp of the evil sorcerer Baron Dante and his impish Dantini hordes. With its broad appeal and groundbreaking creativity, the original game quickly became a multi-million selling platforming classic, and while the Croc Legend of the Gobbos remaster delivers an authentic gameplay experience that transports players back to the golden age of gaming, it also introduces a roster of modern updates, including enhanced high-definition graphics, modern control mechanics with an updated camera, and retro video modes to recreate the gaming experience that charmed us in the 1990s. So that's that. I'm not going to go over this, and I'll tell you what, we'll have a look at this video, shall we? There's a little video just showing the remaster in action. So we'll hit play on that for the benefit of the people watching this on YouTube. But very authentic, very faithful to the original game, I must say. They haven't overdone it with the graphics and stuff. Just a bit of upscaling on the textures and higher resolutions. But it's all about the gameplay, isn't it? And as previously mentioned, it was... gameplay-wise, I think it was up there with some of the greats. So very excited to see this. I won't play the whole trailer. I will link to it down below, of course, in the description and in the show notes on your podcast platform. The trailer and, of course, this story over on Gamatsu. And you know what? To complete the set, I'll also link to the place where you can go and order the physical editions over on Rocket Games. So, speaking of stories that I have been covering in somewhat of a long-running manner in these rambles in recent weeks and months, another update for you now on another project that I am particularly excited about, and this is Taki Udon's SuperStation. So, this is the FPGA-based recreation of the original PlayStation. Of course, Taki Udon is a tech YouTuber who does stuff with old consoles and that kind of thing. Some really impressive hardware projects, and he does have previous in this world of FPGA gaming. He also released the Mr. Pi, which was a clone of the D10 Nano board, which of course is the basis for the Mr. project. And highly successful clone, made a few little tweaks and improvements and things, but most importantly, it was released at a much lower price than the original board. And if you don't know what I'm talking about with Mr. and with FPGA, basically FPGA chips, a field programmable gate array, is a reprogrammable chip that can emulate, I'm going to use the word emulate, I know it upsets some people in the FPGA community. Quite frankly, I don't care. But it can emulate other chips at a hardware level, and that's what makes it so accurate at kind of reproducing these old consoles and computers and stuff. And it's the basis of the Mr. project, which is obviously the biggest kind of project in that world. Highly successful, all sorts of DIY solutions and things available. And this is essentially another kind of permutation of the Mr, because it does run all of the Mr cores. So you don't necessarily have to play PlayStation games on this. You can use it to run all of those old computers and consoles and things as well. But yes, the SuperStation. So as we can see here on Taki Udon's website, the console is now on sale for $179.99. And there's also the Super Dock. Now, what is the Super Dock? It's an add-on which allows you to use your physical PlayStation discs with this. So there's a $5 deposit. I have read somewhere that the Super Dock is expected to retail for, I think, $40, although that does, yeah, it does actually say here we are targeting $40. That seems very, very reasonable for what it is. It's a slot loading disk drive that docks with the SuperStation and allows you to play your original PlayStation games from those original discs, which, considering this thing supports the original memory cards and the original controllers as well, but you get all the benefits of Mister, like HDMI output and, like I say, the ability to run all those other cores. This thing's bloody fantastic, isn't it? It's such a cool project. And if we click through to the SuperStation, of course, as previously announced, there are various different colours of this available, and it's at $180. So, again, an absolute steal, but I wouldn't expect any less from Taki Udon. Top chap. So what is the latest update? The latest update isn't to do with the availability of the dock or indeed the SuperStation itself, which are things that have been previously reported on. No, the user interface has been revealed. So I'll go to Blue Sky for this. And it's themable, and we have some screenshots here of the basic user theme. So I will describe this for the benefit of the people listening to this on the podcast platforms. We've got some really cool, it's this really nice kind of terminal type font, I guess. But what it kind of adds over and above the Mister experience is that we have these little pixel art icons for arcade, computer, console, and handheld, and they are really, really cute. They're really cool. I really like the design of these. Top job, as to be expected, of course. And this post over on Blue Sky showed this off in a few different colorways, I guess, a few different backgrounds. So we've got black, red, blue, and green on show here. But there's something a little bit more interesting to see as well, because if we go through to a slightly later post, there are some other views, and we have a proper game list here, which has actual box art on it as well. So we just go to the text-based view. This one, of course, is very reminiscent of the Mister menu. So you've got your list of options down the middle, and you can scroll down and you can pick your game. Again, another screenshot of kind of the text-based platform selection screen, if you like. But the ones that will probably be of most interest to people are these graphical ones. So as you scroll down the list, we've got the list of games on the left-hand side, and we've got the box art on the right-hand side, which in this case is showing off Spyro the Dragon, another fantastic reptile-based platformer, I guess. Is that too tenuous of a link? It's more of a kind of an adventure game than a platformer, I guess, but hey, let's roll with it. And again, if we just click through to these, we have some, look at these screenshots. I mean, they're not overly complicated, they're not overly busy, overly fussy, but they get the job done, and they look, this is right up my street. I really like this. It would be so cool if this became available for the Mister as well. And I must admit, I am a big fan of very minimalist interfaces on these systems, because I just like a text-based list. You know, I have a keyboard hooked up to my Mister. If I want to play a particular game, you know, I want to play, I don't know, Bubble Bobble, not a great example, but, you know, press B and it goes to B, and then you pick the game from the list. But yeah, these graphical menus, I like the way that these have been done. They look very cool, and these will be coming as part of the SuperStation. As mentioned, I'm not quite sure if anything's been announced as regards releasing this as a thing for Mister itself. Wouldn't surprise me with Taki. He does give an awful lot back to that community. But yeah, just really cool to see, and the latest chapter in the SuperStation saga. And I just want to kind of wish him all the best with this project. I know it'll succeed because he's very, very competent and very capable, but shaping up to be something very cool indeed. Right, now let's get on to some user submissions. Over on my Discord server, I have a channel over there specifically for story submissions, which is called, well, Ramble Submissions. I know, very imaginative name. And this one comes from our good friend, Manimo. Yep, I'm going to go with Manimo as a pronunciation on that. I think that's right, isn't it, Manimo? Yeah, I think that's right. This is the port of Ultima III to the VIC-20, the Commodore VIC-20, of course, the predecessor to the Commodore 64, as it has now become known kind of retroactively. And the link is to an hour and a half video over on YouTube, posted by Alexei Eben. And of course, Alexei is the developer of this port. We've got the download link here, so you can go to vic20ultima3.wordpress.com and actually download it yourself. And you can run it on Flashcart or whatever of your choosing, I guess. I must admit, I'm not all that familiar with the VIC-20, but we'll roll with this. And we have a video here. I have no idea what this is at the beginning, but we'll skip through some actual gameplay. And look at this. Isn't this cool? I love the graphics on this. Of course, the VIC-20 is kind of predominantly ASCII-based art. Very, very primitive graphics on that system. Very primitive color palette and stuff. But what the developer has managed to squeeze out of this platform is very, very impressive indeed. So I wanted to show this off. And if we just go through, we can see some of the kind of more 3D. Do we want to describe it as 3D? Let's see. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Wandering through the maze. If you're familiar with like 3D Monster Maze on the ZX81, stuff like that, and of course, I guess Ultima 3 is probably the best example, as that's what this game actually is. Yeah, it's a very faithful recreation of Ultima 3 on the VIC-20. I'm sure Scottish Dave will be a big fan of this one. And by the way, keep an eye on This Week in Retro this week. It's coming out at 10 a.m. and as always on a Saturday. And you might be surprised to see a certain guest host pop up this week. But that's all I'll say on the matter. But anyway, let's go through to the official website for this port. So this is VIC-20 Ultima3.wordpress.com, an unofficial port by Alexei Eben, released on the 20th of March 2025. And we've got some really cool looking screenshots here. And we've got the story behind the game and the story behind this port. So let's read a little bit from this for the benefit of our audio listeners. The legacy of Ultima 3, we create worlds. So Ultima 3 Exodus was released in 1983, and it was a groundbreaking computer role-playing game developed by Richard Garriott, of course, also known as Lord British, a bit of a legend in the world of game development, of course, as we know, and published by Origin Systems. It introduced several innovations, come on Reese, including a full party-based system where players controlled up to 4 characters with distinct abilities. The game also featured tactical turn-based combat on a separate battle screen, and that alone set it apart from many CRPGs of the time. Unlike the majority of 1983's computer games, which were often arcade-style action titles like Donkey Kong and Pac-Man, nothing wrong with those, of course, Ultima 3 focused on creating a rich, immersive world with deep lore, character progression, and open-ended exploration. Players could freely navigate a vast overworld, visit towns and dungeons in almost any order, interact with townspeople, and make meaningful choices in their adventure. This sense of freedom was exceptional in an era when most games followed linear progression and high-score mechanics. So there we go. So we've got some information here on the actual VIC-20 port of this. It's a faithful conversion of the original Commodore 64 version. All the game logic is included, as is. VIC-20 specific graphics and sound routines were created from scratch. 16 by 16 pixel tile graphics from the original were carefully adapted to 8 by 16 resolution, flat pixel tiles on the VIC-20. You can tell it's Friday afternoon, can't you? It's based on Ultima 3 Gold. It's an enhanced C64 edition released by Major Valp in 2007. He disassembled and documented nearly the entire Ultima 3 code for his project and generously provided his archived work folders to aid this port, an invaluable resource. So thanks to his prior work, developing the VIC-20 version became a 2-month project instead of a year-long. This has been developed in 2 months. My goodness. And it's available to download for free. There is a tip jar if you want to make a donation. Of course, this is kind of a one-man effort, although I guess a 2-man effort if it is kind of somewhat built on someone else's previous attempt. But yeah, I thought this looked like a really cool project. Thank you ever so much to Monemo for submitting this over on the Discord server. And if you have a VIC-20 or indeed a Mister or a VIC-20 emulator and want to go and check out the VIC-20 port of Ultima 3, the download links will be in the usual places. The next story, again, comes from the Discord server, and it was submitted by Technic. So thank you ever so much to Technic for submitting this story. And this one particularly jumped out at me because it is one that I have a personal historical connection to. So I think without further ado and further waffle, let's jump into the background information on this, which comes courtesy of Wikipedia. And this is the Pebble Smartwatch, which, if you cast your mind back to 2012, was the most successful Kickstarter campaign of all time back in 2013, by the time that campaign actually finished and the product was launched. And it raised $10.3 million. And the interesting thing here is that I was actually part of this Kickstarter. So I owned one of the very first generation Pebble watches. And yeah, $99 for the basic version, or $149 for the steel-bodied version. And it had a very basic monochrome LCD screen and a couple of buttons, and that was pretty much it as far as smartwatches go. It was designed to be kind of very, very minimalist. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic thing. And I actually backed the follow-up product as well, the Pebble Time, which they also did a Kickstarter for. And the interesting thing about the Pebble Time in 2015 was that it had an e-paper display, a full-colour e-paper display, which still isn't a very common thing. I say full colour, it's a 64 colour, but you know what I mean. A colour e-paper display, or e-ink display, however you want to describe it. Let's not get buried too much in the technical details. But yeah, I must admit that Kickstarter, from what I remember, that did actually drag on quite a bit. And by the time the watch finally arrived, I think I just sold it straight on eBay because I'd moved on to like fitness tracker type watches. And then I think eventually Pebble got acquired by Google. That's right. Or was it acquired by Fitbit, which then in turn got acquired by Google? I don't know. I'm going to link to this if you're interested in the story, because this story isn't about the Pebble Watch itself. It's about a brand new spiritual successor to the Pebble Watch. We'll get there in the end. So this is Eric Mijikovsky. Eric Mijikovsky, that's a cool name, that is. Introducing 2 new Pebble OS watches. Of course, Google open-sourced Pebble OS quite recently, in fact, the operating system that ran on the original Pebble watches. And essentially, this is someone who's taken that OS and basically reinvented the watch that it was originally designed to run on, and actually launched it as a product that you can pre-order, which is so cool to see. So the Pebble Watch is back, and they have some very cool retro-inspired names as well. So we're excited to announce 2 new smartwatches that run open-source Pebble OS and are compatible with thousands of your beloved Pebble apps. There's the Core 2 Duo, which has an ultra-crisp black and white display as per the original polycarbonate frame, and it costs $149 and starts shipping in July. So this isn't some kind of pie-in-the-sky vaporware type product, at least we are assured anyway. Core Time 2 is a larger 64 colour display, of course, as per the Pebble Time. It has a metal frame and it costs $225, and that one starts shipping in December. Both are available in limited quantities with worldwide shipping. Prices are in USD, and pre-ordering is the only way to get one. They will not be sold in stores. Pre-order today at store.repebble.com. And I suppose we should go and check out the official pre-order website. So get your new Pebble OS watch. My new company, Core Devices, and I are proud to introduce 2 new watches that closely follow the original Pebble DNA. If you had a Pebble and loved it, or missed your chance 10 years ago but heard about it since, we think you will really enjoy these new devices. For those unfamiliar with Pebble, it's an e-paper smartwatch with simple functionality, long battery life, and a fun, quirky design. And it just talks a little bit about the history there, which of course I have already mentioned. So we've got some really nice pictures of these products. So we've got the Core 2 Duo, which is the basic monochrome version in black and white, and that looks very cool. So a little video there as well. Oh, that's a nice kind of 3D rendered video of the. That's bringing it all rushing back, isn't it? Oh, I'm going to have to order one of these. They're so cool. And then there's the Core Time, which of course is the full colour version. Very kind of similar design, but it's slightly bigger and has that colour screen as well, and runs the original OS and all of those original apps as well. So here are the specs, and Apple Watch users, prepare yourselves to be shocked. So the battery life is 30 days, and of course the battery life was a really big selling point of those original watches. They were designed to be incredibly low power. IPX8 water resistance, you've got step and sleep tracking, you've got a microphone and a speaker on these. Runs Pebble OS, and there's over 10,000 watch faces and apps available. A bit of an FAQ here. So is this a Kickstarter? No, I have personally funded development of these new watches because I really want them myself. If you place a pre-order, you can cancel it at any time for a full refund up until your watch is ready to ship. As we get closer to shipping, we will share more details, images, and information. So yeah, it says that you can cancel your pre-order at any time up until shipping. Is it an upgraded Pebble 2, the basic Core 2 Duo? Yes, the big change is an increase from 7 to 30 days of battery life. We also added a speaker, linear actuator motor, compass, and barometer, and improved the buttons. Compass and a barometer as well, wow. And is the Core Time 2 basically an upgraded Pebble Time 2? Yes, it is. Exact same beautiful screen as the Pebble Time 2, and they added a speaker and a touchscreen and boosted the battery life yet again. And there's questions here about the warranty and the international shipping and stuff as well. And we've also got the specs here. So yeah, the basic Core 2 Duo version has a 144 by 168 resolution, and the Core Time 2, the color version, 64 colors, 1.5-inch screen, 200 by 228 pixel resolution. So yeah, it's all there. It's a real project. It has been developed. It is ready to go into manufacturing, and you can go and pre-order one now. You can get your Core 2 Duo, the monochrome version, in July, or you can get the Core Time, the full colour, the 64 colour, I keep saying full colour, the 64 colour version in December. And as someone who owned a Pebble watch back in the day, I have to say, if you're looking for a very basic smartwatch where you don't need to worry too much about putting it on charge every single day, has step tracking and all of that kind of stuff built in, and notifications from your phone. And I remember the original also had the ability to control stuff like Spotify on your phone. I think I was probably using Google Music at the time. So you can actually use the buttons on your watch to kind of skip between tracks, which is really handy if you use your phone in your car with Bluetooth for playing music and that kind of stuff. Or at least it was back in those days. Obviously nowadays, car technology has kind of caught up. But yeah, I am fully in support of this project. I know absolutely nothing about the story behind it. So if it turns out to be a scam, my apologies. Could end up being the Super Sega all over again. But I will go into this one with good faith, purely because I do want to see it succeed. And I do think it's a very cool thing. The Amiga, one of the perhaps most fondly remembered and well-loved computers released in the 80s, a really kind of revolutionary and powerful machine, really advanced graphics and sound. And I don't say that lightly. As someone who is known as an Atari ST fan, I certainly have an awful lot of love for the Amiga as a platform and for that community as well. Of course, I went to the Kickstart Amiga show last year, showing off my Atari stuff, and couldn't have been a nicer bunch of people. So more than happy to help spread the word in the world of the Amiga. And this story is all about a modern recreation of the Amiga, a modern kind of mini version of that computer. Now, this one does come with a bit of a caveat, I will say. So this is a product released by Retro Games Limited, and there is some controversy around this company and around some people that have been involved with this company. So I will point that out. I just want to put it out there, just address the elephant in the room. I'm not here to report on that. Just want to give an update on one of their latest projects. So they were previously known for releasing the A1200 Mini, of course, which was a mini version of that Amiga 500. Quite a successful mini computer. This, it had the recreation of the controller. I think it was the CD32. Is it the CD-TV or CD? I'm not an Amiga person. I apologise, but had a really cool little four-button game controller with it. A recreation of the original mouse, the Amiga Tank mouse, as well, of course. And of course, this company is also known for stuff like the Atari 400 Mini. They did a Mini VIC-20, a C64 Mini, and they've done the Spectrum most recently as well. A recreation of course, the Spectrum. Very, very faithful recreation from what I've seen. But their latest product has been hit by some controversy. And this is reported over on timeextension.com. This was posted to my Discord by Richard Shears, by the way, so thank you ever so much for posting this. I think a couple of other people posted it as well, but he's the one that kind of stood out to me because I love him. And the headline here is full-size Amiga replica delayed by legal action, and it will be called the A1200, perhaps unsurprisingly. And the subheading here is the situation is completely beyond our control. So this is being reported over on Time Extension by Damien McFerrin. And Retro Games Limited has posted the following statement on Facebook. As everyone knows, it has long been our intention to release a full-size sequel to the A500 Mini in Q1 of 2025. Despite the best efforts of our team and partners, this will sadly not be possible within that timeline. So this was, obviously, of course, the original A500 Mini was at a little tiny little thing, like kind of like VHS tape size, if you remember those. DVD case, I guess, if you're a bit older. Didn't have a functional keyboard, of course, because of its size, although you could plug a standard USB keyboard into it and use it that way. But this was going to be a proper full-size recreation of this machine, or of the Amiga 1200, I should say. The kind of high-end, super fancy wedge Amiga, if you like. But anyway, unfortunately, the ongoing legal disputes between Hyperion Entertainment and the Amiga parties are preventing us from proceeding with manufacturing. Many of you in the Amiga scene will recall that Hyperion initiated legal action against the Amiga parties in 2018, and in 2019 they even tried unsuccessfully to challenge the release of the A500 Mini, despite such interference being a Hyperion prohibited action under their 2009 settlement agreement. Our friends at Amiga and Cloanto, who have supported us throughout the development of the C64, the VIC-20 and the A500 Mini, have been working tirelessly to resolve the issue as swiftly as possible. However, our manufacturing and retail partners have chosen to postpone the release of our full-size machine until the legal situation is fully resolved. We appreciate the disappointment and frustration that these delays cause, but unfortunately, the situation is completely beyond our control. In the near future, we will share more details about the machine itself, including images, features, and software lineup, including one brand new game that will make its debut on the machine. We will also issue a revised release date, which will be as soon as is practically possible. Thank you for your continued patience and support, yada, yada, yada. So there we go. So this story basically reports, of course, on Retro Games Limited, the company behind the C64 and the A500 Mini consoles, and they've announced their product roadmap for the next few years. And part of that was that, of course, this thing was going to be delayed. So yeah, we've got not a lot of information here. But there you go. That's not really relevant to the story. Don't even know why I mentioned that. But yeah, essentially the story here is that, of course, the usual Amiga shenanigans. There's a company called Hyperion and a company called Cloanto and a company called Amiga, and they all claim ownership of various different bits and bobs of the old Amiga stuff, the operating system, the trademarks, the logos, the name, all of that kind of thing. It's a very complicated situation, and I'm not going to go into the details here. But yep, they've all kicked off again, or shall I say, it's specifically that. Yeah, specifically Hyperion that have kicked off, I should say, and it has caused the delay of this long-awaited recreation of the Amiga 1200. But at least we now know that it is going to be called the A1200, and it is finished, and the software side of it is all done. There's going to be a brand new game on it as well, and it looks like this is something that's going to be resolved, and it is actually going to eventually, hopefully, be released this year, and hopefully be quite an exciting product. So there you go. The A1200 has been delayed. And that, dear viewer/listener, brings me around quite neatly to my regular video of the week feature, wherein I recommend a video that I've seen in the previous week on YouTube that has inspired or entertained or informed, or all of the above, or quite often none of the above. They're usually retro tech related or retro computing or gaming related, but that said, they're quite often not as well, because hey, anything goes. And I'm actually going to book the trend again this week and recommend two videos to you, because there was one that was posted over on my Discord server that I watched that I thought was actually really, really interesting. And there's another video that I also want to give a big shout out to as well. So you get two videos this week. Exciting stuff. Now, this was posted by Kosiak, or Kosiak, Control-Alt-Kosiak, he goes by the name of, over on my Discord. So thank you ever so much for submitting this. And it's a channel that I was actually already familiar with. I've actually already watched a few of this guy's videos, because you may not be aware that but one of my other hobbies is film photography. And yeah, so that's the thing. Don't think I've really talked about it on here before, but there you go. I should probably start a YouTube channel about that. But no, maybe not. I already have enough going on in my life. But this is a channel called Snappiness, and it's a channel all about film photography. Now, what he's actually gone out and done is he's bought a Kodak picture maker. So if you remember going into kind of supermarkets years and years ago, 1998 it says here, kind of when digital cameras were just kind of starting to hit the mainstream and just starting to be a thing. Of course, people were used to printing their photos out. You'd take your film into the supermarket or your local chemist, as was quite often the case here in the UK. You'd drop your film off, and then, you know, a week later, you'd get a nice packet with all of your photos in and all of your negatives all kind of flattened out nicely and developed and done. And when digital cameras first came about, of course, everybody wanted to print off their photos. They wanted the exact same kind of tactile experience that they were used to with those film cameras. And so these booths, these kind of self-service kiosks, started to appear in supermarkets and other locations. And what you could do is you could basically take the memory card out of your camera, or in some cases even directly connect the camera using USB, download the photos onto a PC running inside the thing, although in this case it's a Sun Spark station that's running this whole thing, which is very interesting in and of itself. And then, of course, you could apply, you could do very, very basic editing, cropping and rotating, and you could print them off in different sizes. And the whole thing was essentially just a computer inside a fancy cabinet. And yeah, he has acquired one. Now, this video isn't made from the point of view of someone who is into old computers. He's a photographer. He's a film photographer predominantly. And he's finally managed to get his hands on one of these kiosks after years and years of searching. And I thought this was a fascinating video. Despite the fact that he's not a computing guy, he does a really great job of covering all the hardware inside this. It even had scanners, so you can actually scan your own film, or you could scan slides or photos, and then you could print those off. So there were two different scanners in this thing. There were two different printers in this thing. There's, of course, the computer, the Sun SparkStation, and I don't want to spoil the video too much, but he does actually get this thing, when he first receives it, it's not working for various reasons, and he does actually manage to get some photos kind of downloaded and printed off by the end of the video, which is really fascinating, and just fascinating to see what was actually inside these things as well. Of course, I think many of us kind of suspected it at the time, but quite cool to see how it's all kind of hooked up and how the software side of things works. So thank you to Koshiak for submitting that. I thought it was a very interesting video. I must say, like I say, I'm kind of an occasional viewer of this channel, and I think it's one that would come up in my recommendations anyway, but the personal recommendation is what tipped me into actually watching this, and I'm very glad that I did. And of course, that will be linked in the usual places. But I guess the kind of main video of the week for you is this one. Now, this is a project that I have reported on previously on the Rambles, and it is someone who is kind of known to me, an online friend of mine, so I will just kind of get that out there. A guy going by the name of Kosam, and this is Macho Nacho Productions, a really fantastic YouTube channel, one that I've referenced a few times in my own videos, various hardware projects and things over the years, and one that I am a religious, avid viewer of every single week. Does a brilliant job, such fantastic videos of these kind of hardware builds and mods and things. So this video is all about the Sega Neptune, which was an unreleased console based on the Mega Drive, or the Genesis, if you like, that kind of big Sega console from the early 90s. And most famously, the Mega Drive was kind of known for its Tower of Power, as it was known. So all of the various hardware add-ons that you could get for the Mega Drive and kind of plug them all in at the same time. So you had the Mega CD add-on, which was like a proper CD-ROM drive thing that would sit on the desk, big square chunky thing. You slap the actual console itself on top of that, and then there was something called the 32X that plugged into the top of that, which added like a more powerful processor and kind of more capabilities to that console. And at some point, Sega actually announced and developed prototypes, and there was quite a bit of press coverage of this as well back in the day. A console that actually combined the top two of those elements, so you could get or the plan was that they would release a Mega Drive or a Genesis with a built-in 32X, all kind of neatly integrated into one console. And this was going to be called the Sega Neptune, and it never got released because, of course, they kind of moved on to the next generation of stuff, I guess. It was a little bit too late in the Mega Drive's life cycle, and I think the uptake of the 32X perhaps wasn't enough to justify a standalone 32X console. So unfortunately, it did get cancelled. But what Kosam has done is basically recreate the PCB for this, or should I say create the PCB for this from scratch. Now, you do need donor consoles to be able to build these, of course, because those original consoles had some custom chips in them that aren't available brand new now. So if you have a broken 32X where the custom chips are still good, or a broken Mega Drive where the custom chips are still good, or you're willing to, I hate to say it, if you want to kind of sabotage or sacrifice those original consoles to build one of these, which is what happens in this actual video. No hate at all, to be honest. I think it's a very cool project, and it's actually a very good use of that hardware. And kind of modernizes it all, and if anything, kind of preserves it. Adds some nice kind of modern touches as well, like the triple bypass video mod, which massively improves the output of the video from the console. So that's another bonus to building one of these. And it's a very advanced build, I will say. So as you'll see if you watch the video, some very, very, very fine kind of surface mount soldering happening on these components, not only to remove them from the donor consoles, but also to attach them to the new board and build the new console. There's a really, really nice, super high quality, really professional looking case that has been, of course, based on the original Sega Neptune images, which were released in magazines and things at the time. And of course, that is part of the build. And there isn't really much out there like this, is there, I guess? It's just such a cool thing to see. And of course, Kosam has a lot of previous experience in kind of designing and building similar projects as well. So well worth going and checking out The Neptune project, of course, part of the Board Folk group. My friend Chrissy is also a part of the same group. I've reported on all of this previously anyway, so yeah, just wanted to point out this video just because it's such a well-made video. If you're not a regular viewer of Macho Nacho Productions, I can highly recommend it as a channel anyway. It's 27 minutes long. It's nice and chilled and laid back. There's some good history in here, history behind the console itself and the 32X add-on. Some really nice kind of hardware type stuff as well, kind of showing the process of the build and the assembly process. Just a really cool, chilled, laid back video to sit and watch or have on in the background while you are watching other stuff. So that is that. They are my 2 videos of the week for this week. First one, all about that Kodak picture maker printing kiosk thing from 1998. And the second one, of course, oh, there's a sponsor spot. Quick, skip it. There we go. And of course, the second one from Macho Nacho Productions about that Sega Neptune recreation from Kosam. And that's all I have for you for this week's Ramble, so thank you ever so much for joining me. And just a couple of little bits of, I don't want to use the word housekeeping because I don't want to tread on anyone's toes, although I do have my favourite mug here, and you know, perhaps another podcast that you might want to go and listen to a little bit later on today at 10 a.m. But yeah, a couple of bits of housekeeping, I guess. You may have noticed on the desk next to me that I have an Atari beer glass if you are watching this on YouTube. And I will say, if you listen to this on the podcast platforms, there is a full video version available on YouTube on my second channel, not my main channel, Control-Alt-Reese. It goes out on a channel called Reese Rambles, which is youtube.com/Reese Rambles, and that is linked in the show notes and stuff, which hopefully your podcast client picks up. But yeah, I have this official Atari beer glass here, and this was a birthday present. It was my birthday last week, as mentioned in last week's Ramble. And we went out drinking beer quite appropriately at the local ale house, and then went for a curry, aptly organised by my very good friend Sam. And this was a gift from Sam and his lovely wife Rachel. So thank you ever so much for this, my very good friends. And the reason I mention this is because I will be using this in the very near future on this channel, or maybe even on the main channel. Now, what do you mean by using? Well, I also have some of these. This is an Imperial Stout, and I should know better than to drink stout after last Saturday. But yeah, we're gonna revisit my old nemesis. It's 12%, and it's called Cacao Demon 2 Hell on Earth. And as you can see, it's Doom themed. It's got Cacao Demons on it. For the benefit of those listening on the podcast platforms. And I want to do a charity live stream. So I haven't live streamed for 5 years, maybe. I did some during, like, you know, those dark times 5 years ago that we don't talk about. But of course, I have the London Marathon coming up, and I am fundraising for that for a fantastic charity called Breast Cancer Now. A load of you have donated already, I should say. I have a Just Giving page that you can go and donate on, and that will be linked again in the usual places. But to do a little bit more for you and to give a little bit more back in return for those fantastic charity donations, I will be live streaming Doom. I think it should just be the first episode. It will be on original hardware. There'll be loads of chat and stuff as well, so we can all just hang out and have a nice chat. And I will be drinking these. I have 6 of these, and the plan is to try to complete the first episode of Doom while drinking a 12% stout. So, I mean, I'm not a big drinker, so that should be quite entertaining, if nothing else. I might need Sam on hand to kind of pull the plug if things get a bit too out of hand. And I'll probably end up sleeping on the studio floor. But there you go. That's the way these things go. And that is a Reese Rambles exclusive for you. So when I do have a date kind of firmed up and decided for that, you will be the first to know. But that's all I have for you, I think, for this week's Ramble. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you ever so much once again for joining me. And I will see you in the same time, same place next week. Bye.